Hi everyone, my name is Nikki. I work in the Adult and Teen Services Department, and I just wanted to say thank you for coming to, or thank you for viewing, in any case, the Calligraphy 101 video. Today we're just going to show like the basic materials you need, how to hold the pen, and a few simple basic fonts you can do with calligraphy. Just like a toe in the water of how calligraphy works. And let's get started. Alright, so one of the biggest things you need to remember, well, there are 4 things that you need to remember when practicing calligraphy. Number 1, you do not write as fast as you do with a normal pen. You just can't do it. You have to consider every step you're taking. All of the strokes, all of the, swirls, all of the flourishes. So the most important thing is to slow down, and number 2 ties into this. You just pause between strokes. We'll get into that a little when I show you how, I form each letters, but do not rush it. It's not a race. Number 3 is you have to hold the pen at a 45-degree angle, and again, I can show you that more when I'm practicing the letters. That's just, most websites recommend between a 30 to 60-degree angle, so 45 is right in the middle there. And that just helps you get the right flourishes, the right thickness and thinness on the pen, and just helps it look good. And then the 4th step is practice. You cannot do this enough. Back when we used to learn cursive in school, you would practice for 10 minutes a day. However long you could hold 4th graders' attention is how long you would practice cursive. This is like that, only for adults. Because I don't know many 4th graders who are trying to learn calligraphy, but a lot of places recommend about 45 minutes a day practicing calligraphy. I think that could be a little less depending on what kind of pen you're using. But it's entirely up to you, what time you have, how you feel about it, and just how intense you're trying to get with it. Okay. And then, I've been talking about pens. There are a bunch of different types. So, the main materials you need are calligraphy pens. Sometimes you can use a fountain pen, you could use these brush pens. Let me uncap that. See, that right there, yeah. It looks like a brush. And I'm not going to draw on my hand, but I'll show you when I get there. These are probably the most common ones, just the brush kind of pen, aside from the actual fountain pen and ink dip pens. And I have 3 different sizes today. The one I showed you was large, I got a medium and a small, and I'll go through them all. And then ones that I have from home are these Callicreative, I don't know. But they're more of a chisel tip. Let me get a bigger one to show you. Right. So it's not quite a brush, and it's not a dip pen. They're basically markers, so I'm going to just refer to these as markers through the rest of the video. But that's what they look like. You can do this with Crayola. These are just fancy Crayolas. Another important step, or important material, is paper. Now you can use the fancy handbook of calligraphy paper that I have here, and those I can zoom in and show you what's special about that. They have guidelines. This one, they have this diagonal line here is 45 degrees, so that's, when you're holding a pen, that's the recommended angle that you go for. So it's just, they give you guidelines, they break it up into, a top, middle, and bottom segment. They give you a nice space, and it's just really good for practicing. I also have a lot of blank paper, because sometimes you just want to write real big letters, and blank paper is the best for that. And side note, all of the material aside from the blank paper or this book, all of the drills and stuff that I'm about to get into are from a website called The Postman's Knock, and you can all of these that I have here I downloaded for free, and I'm going to include the links in the video, in the bio, so that you all can go through the same drills that I'm showing, or find what works for you, find different fonts, all sorts of fun stuff. Right. Now, talking about drills. This is my favorite of the sheets that I have. It just shows you different swirls, different like thicknesses to practice your upstrokes and your downstrokes. Or side strokes, however. Just to get the shape, practice holding the pen. Now, upstrokes and downstrokes are the two things you need to remember. Because the upstrokes are when you're drawing the pen up, and those are usually thinner. And then when you go down, you apply more pressure and make it a thicker stroke. So, let me zoom in more on that square, and I can show you live and in person how I do this drill. Okay, so 45 degrees, generally a light pressure, thin upstroke up until about halfway through the curve, and then more pressure on the downstroke. Just a bit like that. That's ultimately my final result. And then gonna keep doing it again. Thin, light pressure on the upstroke, heavy downstroke. And, okay, I'm going through all of these things, but you should know that there's no wrong way to do this. Like, whatever you think looks good, whatever feels right for you, is how you should do it. Like, it's an art form, yes, but there's no wrong way to do it. So whatever works in your opinion, like with your practice, with whatever materials you prefer, just do it. Like, you don't have to do it exactly like anyone else. It doesn't have to look exactly like the materials you find or the font you're trying to copy. But if you really, really wanted to, you could probably just grab a blank piece of paper and trace it. If you're trying for exactly that font, I'm not opposed, and I'm not going to tell anyone not to do that, because I do that sometimes myself. And then you just kind of continue. These are for when you're definitely practicing, like in those 15, 20, half-hour long practice sessions that you can, whatever like works best for you. This is when you would pop out the drill sheets. Thin. You will notice I am not holding this one at a 45-degree angle because these are the chisel chip markers, and I just don't think I need to with these. Might be because I've had them so long, might be because I'm having bad habits, but I try to do it more with the brush pens, just because these are so detailed. Now this one is a thick, like this is the large brush pen, so the thin isn't like super thin like you're seeing in the example. And again, that's not wrong. There's no wrong way to do it. Right. So that's one of the drill sheets I have. This is another one. Well, this one's 2 pages. So I'm gonna do the fun Christmas tree drill that is included in that set, because I think it's fun. Now this one, it tells me at the top here to rotate the page 90 degrees. So I'm just going to do this one sideways. I'm going to use the small brush pen, because that's a lot of tiny swirls. I'm going to line my paper and try to hold this one at a 45-degree angle, and let's see what happens. With the smaller ones, I'm not stressed out about it because I can barely see the guideline. But as I get bigger, I'm going to try and match the thickness and the thinness. With fountain pens, I think you could probably get a better feel for it. I don't have one with me today, unfortunately. But you could probably figure out how to make those lines look prettier than what I just did. Alright. Back at it with the next one. I'm getting a little too fast, which was why they look sloppy, because I forgot rule number 1. Alright, I feel like that first one looked better than the second one, but I'm getting the hang of it. I'm figuring it out. I'm gonna do this first empty one with a pencil. When I was first learning calligraphy, I definitely used a lot more pencils than you probably should for that sort of thing. Just because I'll get into this more with the letters, but I feel like it helps you get the feel for like the swirls and the flourishes. That one's a little wide, got a little lazy there at the end. But pencils, I feel, help you figure out, hey, here's where this letter flourishes, here's where each thing is different, and it's easier, I feel, when you're just starting. So these are my practice letters, because I definitely needed the practice. Throughout these couple of pages, I did switch throughout all of the pens that I have, all of the markers and stuff. And it might just be because I learned cursive in the 4th grade and have never used it since, but I struggle a lot with like the Z's and the E's, and some of them I get real easy, some of them are real hard. And then I think after a while, after a couple of practices, I find what feels right and what I think looks okay, and then I tell myself to stop comparing it to the exemplar, to the font that I'm looking at, because I know I'm just going to drive myself crazy if I do that. And that's why I keep like stressing, don't worry if it doesn't look exactly like the pieces of paper I'm about to show you and share with you today. Whatever you think looks okay will be fine. Because like that one, I'm real proud of that, because I've been struggling with this E on that font for a while. But after, I don't know, maybe 12 different tries, I found one that I'm okay with. I don't know if I'll be able to do it again, but again, that's also okay. It's trial and error, and it adds a human touch to that sort of thing. Like if you wanted stock calligraphy, you could just buy a stencil. Alright, so one of the fonts, one of the types of calligraphy, however you want to refer to it, that I'm showing you today is something called Faux Calligraphy. This one, definitely easiest of the 3, because it can be done with any writing instrument. It's really just cursive. Let me zoom in and show you. It's really just cursive with an extra bracket. Like, you're just adding a little bit of flair with your letter. Unlike the other ones I have, this one's just lowercase letters, and there's a place for that. I'm not mad about it. So with these, I'm going to pull out some of the pens that I have. And I'm going to pull out a blank piece of paper, because I don't need to do that in the angled paper, because it's just writing. I'm going to try and line up with like the bottom line, because otherwise I can't write in a straight line, but that's all I'm going to try to do. I'm not going to worry about the 45-degree angles. And I'm going to try this F, because I've never done an F with the faux calligraphy, and it's different than like any other cursive F I've ever done. And I'm just going to outline the box that I'm going to use as a guideline. For you guys, so that you can see it. Alright, so I'm going to try to put this F in that box as best I can. So I'm just going to start with this cross, just up, down, and a swoop. And then with the faux calligraphy, because it's just fancy cursive, I'm just going to go off of the arch and come down with a secondary line. My swirl at the bottom is going to get a little janky, because that's just how I do, and then I'm just going to color it in. because I think that looks better than the empty floating F, but that's my personal opinion, and you don't have to do that if you don't want to. If you like how the hollow letter looks, that's entirely up to you. Right, and then obviously, it's not perfect. You can see that. There are distinct differences that make it human. Because this is a much thinner thing, this swoops up there is a little too, like, shallow. I think my trailing line was too long to start with, but all in all, it's not a bad F. I'd do it again. I'd probably try something different, but I'm going to move on to a different letter because that's more fun for, I think, everyone involved. So I'm going to do a J. I'm going to start with leading line, drop down, and there. And then with the J's and the I's and stuff, it just kind of builds off of this one. So it's like a thick line instead of, like with the F, it was a curve all the way out. And then a nice little dot, even though I don't dot my I's or J's with my normal handwriting. And again, just going to color it in because I think it looks nice. And yeah, I'm happier with that than I was with the F. But again, I don't dot my I's or J's, so I think it looks a little weird with that dot. It actually translates better on camera than I feel it does in person. But again, personal opinion. I'm going to find problems with a lot of things I do because I haven't done this in a while. But I was excited to share it with you, and I'm hoping you all are having a good time. Or figuring out some stuff. And then I'm going to do one more before moving on to the next font that I have. I'm going to use purple. And I'm going to do a W. So swoop. There's my normal W. And then coming off this swoop into a... That's too wide. But it's okay because I can make this side look even. And suddenly, it's actually pretty nice. With the faux calligraphy, because it's just adding on to normal cursive, you do want to try and make it a little wider or a little bigger than you normally would with the letter, because otherwise it just gets a little too cramped. And then, with this one, the downstrokes and the upstrokes don't matter as much unless you're using a specific pen. Like with the fountain pens and some of the brush pens, if you go against the grain, as it were, it's gonna ruin the pen or the paper. Since I was using just normal pens, you can do whatever. Let me just zoom in real fast. Alright, yeah, and there are my 3 letters in faux calligraphy. And then I'm gonna put that paper aside and move on to the first proper calligraphy, as it were. Again, all of these fonts, all of these drills are from the Postman's Knock, and this one they've called Beth style calligraphy. I don't remember why, but I'm sure it is on that website somewhere. With this one, I'm going to grab the medium-sized brush pen because I feel like that translates better on camera. It's a little thicker, it's not quite too bold that it's impossible to get it's impossible to get a thin line. And unlike the faux calligraphy, this one comes with guidelines of their own, just printed on the paper. One thing that I have noticed with the Postman's Knock is they're not using a 45-degree angle on these guidelines. Right there, that's not 45 degrees. Check. Yeah, they're using a 60-degree angle. So you could either stick to this guideline, or you could try translating it into the 45-degree angle boxes if you buy the, like, quote-unquote official calligraphy paper. It's entirely up to you. I'm gonna stick to this guideline just to get that going, and I'm gonna pick a letter. I'm gonna do the letter K. So I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna center it so you can see. Right, so that's what I'm going to try doing. And then I'm going to try matching the guidelines. So from here, this first guideline isn't there, but I can imagine where it'll be. So, I'm going to do the flourish and the harsh downstroke. And then the swoop and the swoop. That looks a little cramped to me, so I'm going to try again right next to it under the L. I'm going to go lighter on this flourish, harsher on there, and then light again. And that looks pretty good, honestly. That looks like a pretty good T, not gonna lie. Because that's the T. That's the what I've got so far for my K. And a lot of calligraphy just builds off of each other like that. So, back to the K. Yeah, that happened. But a lot of the same movements are used in calligraphy. Because, again, it's just upgraded cursive. So, gonna move on to the calligraphy paper for now, since I can't stay within a guideline anyway. And then, let's just do that S, since it's right there. And because the 45-degree angle is different than what I was going off with this example, I'm gonna freeball it. Like, at this point, I'm just using, like here they have a dotted line, so I'm just going somewhere in the middle of here is about where that dotted line would be. That's usually where I try to drop, like here on the R, that's where I would try to connect that. But for the S, I'm just going to start here at the bottom, go up, and then thick downstroke. And then gonna do it again because it's an S, it's legible, but I think it could be better. Of course, I'm my harshest critic on this sort of thing. And then light all the way up, and then heavy all the way down. And then I'm getting there. Light. And this is another reason why practicing is so important, because you get a feel for all of the letters. And as I was saying before, that's why I typically try to do it in pencil first. Like, I'll like trace the letters, get a feel for the swoosh, for the swooshes and the flourishes. So like, if I was approaching this sheet on its own for the first time, I'd look at this Z and I'd take my pencil and I would start here at what I think is the start, which is this light upstroke. And just trace it. Then I'd apply more pressure down here on the thick parts and try to pick it back up again on the thin parts. And I would probably do that a couple of times just so I feel like I'm getting it. And then I'd probably move on to this Y, because that one's also connected interestingly. Because this real thin, let me come back around. This thick line into this real thin one into the down, into the like the neck of the Y, has been tripping me up. So like this connection right here is something I've been working on for the past couple of days. I don't do lowercase with my calligraphy so much, just because most of the fun flourishes are in the uppercase letters. But like here, they got some nice dips in this P, they got a nice little swoosh on the Q, the T's got a little curly Q here at the end that I kind of think is fun. And this one, they also give you numbers, which is fun. The 4 especially is like a particular favorite of mine just because I love this little swoosh right there. And yeah, like Postman's Knock tries really hard to give you all of the letters and numbers you think you're going to need. And that's why I appreciate their website so much. Alright, so this last one that I have, like this last font that I have, is something called copperplate calligraphy. And this is the sort of stuff you would see on like brass engraving plaques this is the fancy embossing or engraving letters. So I'm gonna zoom back in so you can see this A. This A has a couple of, let me zoom in more, see if I can show you. Too fuzzy. Okay, this A has a couple of interesting starts. So this downstroke and this upstroke here, there's a gap between them. So you do the thick downstroke. Let me get a pen so I can show you. Alright, we'll do this with medium. So you do the thick downstroke. Heavy pressure, letting the pen spread out and do its thing. But with the upstroke, you gotta get this dot here at the end a little thicker and then thin it out. And then don't connect them. That's the part I've always been struggling, is trying to leave a gap there between these two lines. And then this flourish on the A starts here. Like it starts, you can tell because this end inside the A is thicker, so that's the downstroke. So it starts here just below the end and swirls around. And see, I got a little too thick for my britches. I got a little too big for my britches right here up on this arch because it's thicker than here. But honestly, I like how it turned out and I'm not mad about it. I can try again though, right next to it. So thick downstroke. Just, that one I was basically just tracing the guideline. You don't have to do that. But then dot and then a thin upstroke. Then it starts here, which is killing me. And swirls around. Alright, I'm gonna try to replicate that one a little further away so I can show you what I just did. Thick downstroke. Dot. Swirl. I connected them, but oh well. Then right below the middle and around. Alright, I feel like I've just gotten progressively less. I've gotten faster and I've gotten less calm about it, so I'm going to switch pens and letters. And we're going to do this G in pink because I think it's fun. Alright, so looking at that G, trying to figure out where to start. I'm going to start here because that's a downstroke. So it's outside this guideline. So thick downstroke. And then up into the G. The one thing about the Postman's Knock that bothers me a little bit is that with the drills, they showed you which way to go. With these exemplars, they don't show you which way you're actually supposed to start. So I'm mostly just guessing on which one is the upstroke or which one is the first stroke, just based on how I would normally start the letter. Because like with the H, I start with this arm, this side of it. I don't know if, like, say, I mean, you could start with the middle and this other leg if you want to. Or you could do it all backwards, I don't know. Because I'm right-handed, I've never thought about how a left-handed person would form a letter in calligraphy. And again with the I's and the J's, I'm just gonna follow this line into what I think the down and the upstrokes are. So line, swoosh, thick, thick, and yeah. So with the exemplars, unless you can find ones that tell you where to start and like what direction to go in, and I just missed them. It's a lot of trial and error. It's just figuring out what feels right. And then I'm gonna do one more letter in the small brush pen, just because I feel like I was not spending enough time on that one. So I'm gonna do this U. So, downstroke, thin, up and around. And then I'm going to try that again because the swirl on the U was a bit too wide. Yeah. Tried that one a little different and it got a little too curvy there on that one. Because most of these you can tell are connected in some way. This one I tried separating this side and the swirl of the U, and it got a little bit too curvy. But the more you know. Alright, the last thing I have for our Fall Fandom Fest is a bunch of happy holidays and holiday calligraphy. Now this one, because I haven't practiced this nearly as much, I'm going to straight trace. So, just because I think it's fun, and I want to show you how pretty it can look when you actually follow. Like this is you can try it, then you can try it on your own paper. I like how it looks, so I would probably just try to copy that onto something. But whatever works for you is the best way to go. So this also, tracing it like this when it's all grayed like that, helps you figure out the upstrokes, the downstrokes, what's thick, what's thin. And then start down here, thick, thin. Alright, well that's all I have for you guys, so thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed.